Florida State. Let's head to Tallahassee because Florida State lines up a big weekend. I think at last check they had over 20 official visitors heading to Tallahassee as Mike Norvell and staff gear up for an extravaganza of a summer recruiting weekend. Let's start with the big five-star offensive linemen. You got Ty Haywood, Josh Petty, Solomon Thomas. As far as the uncommitted guys go, in Haywood and Josh Petty, who do you think Florida State has a better shot at least when we head into this weekend?
Well, I have the on-3 RPM prediction of Josh Petty to Florida State. So does colleague Chad Simmons. So we feel good about the Seminoles for one of the most coveted interior offensive linemen in the country. Josh Petty's sister is going to attend school at Florida State. They're very close. Alex Atkins, that relationship, the track record, the offense, the culture Mike Norvell has created, the winning pedigree that Florida State has right now, just the excitement around the program. I like Florida State for Josh Petty, but Stanford, Ohio State, Georgia Tech, Tennessee, some of the others that have given him some good official visits this summer. Ty Haywood, the momentum's with Alabama right now, in my opinion. He was supposed to be at Oklahoma last weekend, did not make that trip. I viewed Oklahoma as one of the front runners for Ty Haywood. When you cross them off and you're like, who is Alabama competing with right now? Because he had a great official visit to Alabama 2 weeks ago. You have Texas A&M. He's been there a few times, but sources indicate that they are a little behind. Now, maybe that's not true. Maybe they'll make a move still. But I like where Alabama stands. So maybe Coach Atkins, Coach Norvell, and Florida State can make a surge this weekend. But coming into it, I like where the Crimson Tide stand as they put together one of the premier offensive line classes in the country, because they could also be close to adding Micah DeBose to what's already in the fold. They've had some big wins on the offensive line recently with Michael Carroll, Jackson Lloyd, Mal Waldrip. And if you add Ty Haywood to that, that's a special group.
All right. So, Steve, how important is the visit for FSU and Solomon Thomas? Because Solomon Thomas, while he's been committed for quite some time now, he has taken official visits to LSU and UF this month. How important is this trip to Tallahassee?
Huge, because I think that LSU visit really blew him away. One of the things that Solomon Thomas enjoyed about LSU is the players getting around Emory Jones and seeing what kind of leader he was for that football team was inspiring to him. Coach Brad Davis, he thinks he's one of the elite offensive line coaches in the country. He just loved the vibe around LSU. Now, obviously, he loves Florida State too. He's given them a verbal commitment. Again, Coach Atkins and Florida State and the opportunities that he has there to help that program continue to gain inches on a national championship is exciting to him. But LSU grabbed some momentum with that official visit a couple weekends ago. Florida State, they've been saving everything for this weekend. June 21st, I have a lot of RPMs in favor of Florida State coming into the weekend. Solomon Thomas is certainly one of their key guys that they have in the fold, and getting him back around all this excitement, all these players together. It's kind of like what Dabo Swinney and Clemson did has done historically for so long, except they do it the first weekend of the summer. Florida State's doing it the last weekend of the summer, and I think I might like that better, Josh.
All right. How about Javion Hilson? Kind of a similar conversation with Solomon Thomas, a guy that's been committed, but he's looking around, and I think Texas is probably the biggest competition here. What do you think of this visit, and does Florida State have a shot to get him to shut everything down?
I agree on Texas, because Javion said as much coming out of his Texas official visit. Now, he's only been there once, so that's something that's kind of been an accelerated interest in the Longhorns. Been to Florida State a bunch. Florida State's battled Alabama for a lot of this process. I think he loves the Seminoles and, getting back to campus. But Texas gave him a lot to think about on that last official visit, so it's good for Florida State to be able to respond.
Yeah. All right, linebacker Tavion Wallace comes in at a major position of need for Florida State this weekend, and his recruitment is red hot coming off this Florida visit, but also Georgia's involved. How much of a player is Georgia in all of this?
Georgia and Florida are both the programs challenging Florida State for Tavion Wallace. He was at Florida this past weekend. Georgia is certainly pushing their linebacker pedigree in the way that they've maximize players at that position. Some of the top players in the NFL coming out of Georgia, some of the highest draft picks at the position coming out of Georgia. I felt like Florida State's been the leader for Tavion Wallace for a lot of his process, But now that it's starting to get down to crunch time with him and he's taking these official visits, I think that gap has certainly narrowed. So kind of similar to what we've talked about with some of these other guys, just getting Tavion Wallace and his family back this weekend is exciting for Florida State because they've been so well positioned for so long. It's just, he's very comfortable there. You just got to get him back on campus, get him back around everybody again, and they'll do that this weekend.
All right, Steve, any other notables for you at FSU this weekend?
Ton of them. Let's just rip it real quick. Myron Charles is a defensive lineman on 300 player. My RPM's on FSU. Byron Lewis is a on 300 running back. It's been to Miami, Georgia, and Wisconsin this summer. But my RPM's on FSU for him. In-state offensive lineman Peyton Joseph, I like the Seminoles for. In-state cornerback Gregory Thomas, I like the Seminoles for. 3 of their top receiver targets are coming in: Vernell Brown III, CJ Wiley, and Dalen McCutcheon. There's some Florida buzz around Vernell, but Florida State and Miami have been considered the biggest challengers. CJ Wiley, LSU and Georgia buzz, but Florida State's had him on campus before. We'll see what happens. And then Dalen McCutcheon's been super high on Florida State most of his process, and they're getting him back. So one to watch there. They're swinging at guys like Lamont Rogers, Jalen Wiggins. They're trying to flip from Florida, top 100 defensive lineman. Lamont Rogers is a top 100 offensive lineman. Gavin Nix is a coveted linebacker from IMG Academy that they're probably battling Miami and Oregon for. So like he said at the top, over 20 official visitors, some of the best players in America, some of Florida State's most coveted targets. They've waited till the last weekend of the summer to bring these guys in. We'll see how that pays off down the road. But I got them landing 6 guys right now from the weekend. We'll see if that's more coming out.
Huge weekend on tap in Tallahassee. FSU fans, let us know how you're feeling. Comment section below. Who do you think the Seminoles land this weekend?